Even though Florida Governor Ron DeSantis hasn't officially entered the 2024 presidential race, Americans are sizing him up to see how he'll do in the primary. And thanks to Rasmussen Reports, we know how Americans are actually feeling. Rasmussen asked if the Republican presidential primary were held today, which of the following candidates would you vote for? 37% said Donald Trump, 13% Ron DeSantis, 6% Mike Pence, 6% Nikki Haley, 2% Vivek Ramaswamy, 5% Asa Hutchinson, that kind of surprises me a little bit, and 18% some other candidate, not sure, is 11%. So join us now to discuss this as Rasmussen Reports head pollster Mark Mitchell. Mark, thanks for being here. I hadn't noticed the Asa Hutchinson when I looked at this poll yesterday, so sorry, that caught me a little bit by surprise. I'm surprised he's even got 5% of support. So let's look at this.
I can easily explain that.
How has it trended?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on its surface, this is a story about the GOP primary, but I think you'll all find that this is very much a story about the DeSantis's trend as well as Trump's relative trend. But first about Asa Hutchinson, the reason that happened is because we give a little, prelude to each name, like businessman Vivek Ramaswamy. And Asa Hutchinson's a former governor, and people think that governors make good presidents because of their executive experience. So that's absolutely why that happened there. I don't think it has anything to do with name recognition. Now, your viewers need to know that these are numbers among all voters, and the big story is in the Republican numbers. But before I get to that, I want to tell everybody why these numbers are important. What this represents is kind of like a candidate's ability to scratch an itch at a national level. How well will that person fit as a presidential candidate overall? And Trump's number is 37%, but DeSantis is in the teens. That's really low. If you recall from our previous discussion, we did a similar question where we compared Joe Biden with Robert Kennedy. And Joe Biden and Kennedy were roughly tied at 36 and 35%. And actually, we did a previous question not too long ago where we had Nikki Haley in the mix. And on a national stage, she actually gets 25%. So DeSantis is really in about fifth as it goes for at a national likely voter level. Now, the Republican numbers are pretty astounding. Trump gets 62% of the GOP primary vote. DeSantis only gets 17. Now, a lot of other pollsters have been out there showing a trend of Trump gaining and DeSantis losing, and hopefully we can put that to rest. It's absolutely happening. The last time we asked this was back in February when Nikki Haley announced, and we had Trump at 52% and DeSantis at 24%. So the numbers are moving in absolutely the wrong direction for DeSantis. And even going farther back to February of last year, we asked a very similar question. And back then, Trump got 47% of the Republican vote and DeSantis got 20%. So DeSantis has actually lost support from where he was doing last year in February. Not really good for his chances as a candidate.
It's interesting, and I had to wonder why, if that's not why he's delayed announcing. We expected it last week. That didn't happen. Of course, that was after Trump's town hall on CNN that went rather well for him, and he's clearly seen a bit of a bump in the numbers since then. So I have to wonder if he's watching this, engaging, because, I mean, DeSantis does seem like he is very careful when he's making decisions. So we'll see if he does end up announcing. I mean, his apparatus is in place. But we also have to look at the Republican turnout.
He has a deep war chest. So I'm sure they're spending a lot of money on polling and very closely looking at developments.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're probably seeing what you're seeing. So, we'll be interested. And you did put to rest the argument that these pollsters want Trump to be the candidate, and we're seeing kind of that fake polling because you never know. Because pollsters, liberal pollsters, the so-called mainstream pollsters, I mean, look, they do that. They create a narrative. They have an agenda. So it was interesting. I was so glad you did this so we could kind of clear that up. And I referenced this to someone yesterday. I said, no, look. Rasmussen, who I know and I trust, they're showing the same trend. So this is real. Now, I want to talk about turnout. You did ask if people were looking to participate in this year's Republican primaries. 52% said very likely, 13% said somewhat likely. So what does that portend? Or is it too early to really tell? But what does that tell us?
This question is very specifically about getting a benchmark. So a lot of pollsters will screen by party and then ask the primary question. And there are almost half of the United States right now that have at least a somewhat open primary. And we all know about the previous Pied Piper strategy. So people that are Democrats voting in Republican parties is a really big thing. And also, Trump has such a massive lead among independents. So how independents vote is really going to be important this time. So we'll have to ask this again every time we ask a primary question and see how things develop. But among Republicans, the engagement is absolutely, earth-shattering. It's like 95% of Republicans are at least somewhat likely to vote in the GOP primaries. Now, they're overestimating, of course. Voters always do. But even another way that this question is important is that we can also compare numbers by who says that they're very likely to vote in the GOP primary. And even among very likely GOP primary voters, Trump is winning over DeSantis 53 to 18%. But it's very important to know that it does change the numbers in a certain way.
Yeah, it is. That's an important question to ask along with the favorability. I do want to switch it up a little bit, Mark. Let's talk about censorship. This is not necessarily a poll, but we both have ended up on a list, Rasmussen Reports and myself. Apparently, we're very dangerous people, Mark. According to this list, we are extremely influential on Twitter and need to be censored. I came in at 17th, and you all came in at 42nd. So, I mean, I expect you guys to pick it up a little bit. Just kidding. You did a great job.
I thought that
result was it's an honor, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, you're the highest ranking person that we know personally, and we think that we did a pretty respectable job. I looked in a little bit about where this came from, and it was actually a very unironic, college program to literally figure out how, quote, false narratives about election interference spread. And here's the thing, Rasmussen, we hold ourselves to a very high standard. We're not out there sharing crackpot theories off a telegram. We're showing evidence of real investigations that are happening at a state level. We're sharing things that have real meat to them, like the 2,000 mules and the True the Vote stuff. And we're commenting on things that are coming out of Maricopa and other investigations. So this isn't false information, and this isn't us spreading dangerous narratives. This is us being an independent news media publisher that's really interested in election fraud, because if it exists, it's really hard for us to do our job. So we want to get to the bottom of it. Now, if people want to follow us, they can go to Rasmussen_poll. Luckily, we came out of that period without having our account taken away, unlike many others. I have to ask, are we the highest ranking person that you have on your show other than yourself?
You know what? I have to look back at the list, but yeah, I think you might be. And you know what? It was very surprising to me, some of the people who ranked very high, because I know for a fact they were people who kind of stayed away, some of them, from election fraud and actually got criticized by some of their followers for not talking more about it. So I don't even know the parameters of how they came up with this list, but it's kind of fun. I always take it as an honor, because it means, if they're looking at us, we're doing something right, because, we've always ended up being right when they've called us misinformation.
Well, we have public opinion on our backs, because now 62% of likely voters say that it's likely that cheating affected the outcome of the 2020 election. And 60% of voters say that it's likely that cheating affected the 2022 midterms. And those numbers have done nothing but go up since those elections. So this story is not going to go away. We're on the right side of it.